What's that you say? Jane. Jane Seymour. You see, as a king, you often have to marry for purpose. You have to marry for an alliance between countries. I did that. Not often you get to choose a wife simply because you want to marry her. But that's what happened with me and Jane. So how did this girl, who outwardly would appear rather plain, worm her way into my affections? Well, I think two things. One, her father, Sir John, was a good man and he had placed her at court. So I'd caught her eye and she mine over a number of months leading up to the execution of Anne. And while I was courting her, I sent her a purse of monies. £60 in a silk purse tied up with a note. Here you are, my love. Get yourself something for the weekend. Maybe buy yourself a house in Hampton or something. You know what? She didn't even open the purse. She sent the money back, completely untouched, with a note that said something along the lines of, my lord, I don't want you for your money and for your riches. I want you for yourself. And that is the way to a man's heart. When you know that someone isn't after your fortune or marrying you because she has to, she wants you for the man you are at your basest level. And that's what it was. She wasn't the most attractive woman on the planet, I'll give you that. She was called the milksop girl, pale complexion, rather mousy, you might think, but she had something. Occasionally, when you come across a woman who doesn't exude exuberance and doesn't trumpet from the balconies how wonderful she is, you do think there's more to this girl than meets the eye. And that's what it was with Jane. Now, here's the thing. She promised me a son, and with 18 months of us being put together, that's what she gave me. It's the only duty of a queen, is to give the king a son and heir, and she did it. We called him Edward, beautiful boy, the kind of boy that you would want to keep alongside you forever, and I cosseted this child right from the word go. I wanted this boy to succeed because I knew that if he played his cards correctly, he would be an even better king than I had been. Jane, of course, and it's to my eternal regret, just wasn't strong enough to survive the pregnancy and the birth. I don't mean anything to denigrate her in this fashion. She was strong-willed. She had an iron will and a cast-iron determination to succeed. But physically she was slight and it took it out of her. God, I remember. I was pacing the halls at Hampton Court Palace and I was called into the birthing chamber. My lord, it's a boy, said a toothless old crone. And they handed me this bundle wrapped up. And there was my son. And the other two wives had signally failed to give me this honour. And so she did right by me. And I looked down at her in the bed to thank her. God, she was grey, ashen-faced. It was as though that the life had already been drained from her. But she was a fighter. She clung on for 11 days. 11 days, there was a slight hope that she might overcome this birthing fever. We had no other name for it. But finally God decided and he took her, to my eternal regret. If Jane Seymour had lived, we would have been happily ever after, as they say, because she would have given me a second son and a third son, I'm sure. So it came time for us to decide what we were going to do about the funeral and the burial. Now, interestingly, because she'd never been crowned Queen of England, because there was plague in London. You can't have a coronation when there's plague. You put a lot of people into one room and somebody coughs, you kill them all. Because of this, she wasn't queen by title, but I called her my true Tudor queen, and that was enough for everyone. She was buried with full honours, and we buried her at my favourite castle. A lot of people think Hampton Court Palace is my favourite place. No, Windsor Castle was my favourite place, and she was buried there in St. George's Chapel. I went as far as to say, when I go, you bury me next to Jane. That was my plan. And that, of course, is what happened. Did I get over it? Of course I did, in time. But I mourned properly. I didn't hunt or play sport or eat proper food for about 6 months. I was totally on my own in my chambers, just with 1 or 2 of my gentlemen. And I didn't look at another woman for 3.5 years. Remember that, 3.5 years. That's the effect that Jane had on me. I had decided that eventually I would have to marry again. But for the moment, I was a single man. And single men, they're lonely. They crave the affection of a good woman. And a single king is exactly the same. Eventually, my eye would turn to another woman.